I was sort of given the job of trying to figure out how to replace the host table. And in my life before that, I had built distributed systems at MIT at the Media Lab, and also at UC Irvine with the DCS project. So I had a very strong sense already about doing naming and about building distributed systems. So that was my background, and the DNS was purposely built to be a little bit more capable than the job I was really handed. And I think everybody benefited due to the fact that I kind of exceeded what I was supposed to do and made something that was more general and extensible. And I think that's one of the goals everybody should have when they design a technology. All technologies get replaced, so sooner or later my HD TV people will say, well, that's just too low definition, and how could you use such a thing? I think that DNS will eventually get replaced. It may be that we'll have a totally new concept of naming and incorporating, for example, reputation. Today, when I ask to go to a web page, do I really want to go to one if it's known to have malware in it? I think we all want to be able to be a little bit more secure on the internet. I think we also want to be able to have some concepts of reputation so that, for example, I can specify what kind of results I'm more interested in when I do search. And perhaps search will get integrated with naming. So I think there's lots of opportunities for a better system, and it'll happen sooner or later. DNSSec does a very narrow part of the security problem. What it does is it sort of guarantees that data should not be forged, and that's about it. But there's lots of domain names that are legitimately owned by criminals for bad purposes, so it doesn't protect against those kinds of problems. Yeah, I don't know the history of the German particular scheme. There's various countries that, for example, decide that the Interpol publishes a list of the worst websites for child exploitation. Should those be filtered out or not? I personally think that ISPs should offer both filtered and unfiltered DNS service. And I would personally use the filtered because I don't see any reason to go visit malware sites. But if you're doing virus research, you might want to use the unfiltered version in order to, be able to do your research. And there are people that would, rather be less secure and less censored. There's always a question about the balance between getting some protection and feeling that your rights may be violated. And I just think that you have to, in the end, offer users choices. There's various implementation challenges with IPv6. DNS is not so much one of them. DNS was purposely designed so that you could have 64,000 data types, and it's been extended. I think people have used about 60. So, adding IPv6 was not that big a deal. One of the things that some of the new browser vendors and other applications people are doing is overusing network resources to try and get better latency. So-called happy eyeballs, where a web browser, if you ask to go to a site, it'll try to go both to the v4 and the v6 site simultaneously, just whichever one works first. It uses a little bit more network resources, but gives a better user experience. Some of those things will affect performance. And I think people are also looking for technologies to make the experience ever better, perhaps at the cost of using more bandwidth. There's a lot of legacy equipment out there from the standpoint of old switches and old DSL boxes in people's houses. That's, I think, the biggest IPv6 barrier now. And then there's firewalls that don't quite understand how to do it, and not all of the side services like network management are as robust in a v6, but they'll all be brought up to snuff. I'm looking into some of the content-centric networking ideas because I find them very interesting. In some ways, they're almost an extension of the DNS for larger chunks of data, but it may be one of the places that you'll see that replacement for DNS come from.